I just got back from Hong Kong, so um, I was doing a presentation there, and usually when I prepare presentations, they take up like so much of my brain
Yeah.
that I can't do anything else. I can't even think about anything else. So I'm just happy that that is now done, and I can just be less pressured.
Yeah, I see you like traveling and just nonstop speaking events. It's a lot.
It is, but it's something that I've kind of decided to do more of this year.
Yeah.
I actually set myself a goal of doing um, 3 a year because I don't like public speaking. It's my worst nightmare, to be honest.
I
You know,
couldn't agree more. I hate it. I hate it so much.
it's so like, you know, I'm always so insecure about like saying the wrong thing and coming across the wrong way, putting my foot in it.
Yep.
So what I tend to do is to practice as much as possible and prepare as much as possible to the point where um, I'm fully prepared and I basically have presenter notes to kind of like lock me in, and that's the only way I can do it. And so I've set myself this goal of doing 3 a year, and I just did my third one in Hong Kong, and that was pretty good. Uh, so yeah,
How do you prepare for those?
um, I kind of start with what the concept of the talk is, and then I kind of think about the kind of structure, the kind of the main story, the main message that I want to tell, and then I get more granular within that. And so I start with a big picture, and then I get down to basically the each word that I'm saying.
Do you practice over and over, like speech in front of your wife and everything?
No, just in front of myself, um, just to like get timing right and
Yeah.
make sure everything flows. Um, it's it's definitely a process that the more I spend time just practicing and just talking to myself and getting to that point, it just becomes like um, easier for me. I wouldn't say it's easy. I still have to knock back a shot of whiskey before I go on stage.
Do you really?
Yeah, yeah, I do.
It's, it's
Just
actually a really good idea.
keep the nerves down, um, because usually I just have this kind of fight or flight response where like my heart is just going, and performance anxiety, which is kind of strange for someone who spent like 10 years in a band on stage performing to thousands of people.
Yeah, dude, that's what I was about to say. When you've done performances, you've been in the lights.
Yes. But
That's
usually that is because that is me kind of in the background of the stage, um,
yeah.
in the back, behind walls of smoke, in the shadow. Yeah. So and usually behind the vocalist, and everyone's like watching the vocalist, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm so inconspicuous that sometimes I've had someone stand in as me, and no one noticed.
Nobody knows.
No one noticed.
Well, the energy is so live in a live performance that it's so different than like when you're talking to 1,000 people and everyone's dead silent.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's it's
It's
it's definitely, you feel like, um, part of a crowd, part of an event, rather than everyone kind of laser focused on what you're about to say.
I think it's like ingrained in our DNA. Like when you would be surrounded by, a couple hundred people, that'd be like the tribe that you'd be surrounded by. And you'd most likely be pleading for your life if you were surrounded by all these people and you're trying to talk to them all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's stressful.
Yeah. But I think, with public speaking, I've got to the point where um, I have a process down, and it's not the process that others do. I know some people who are really good at it are absolute naturals, and they can just make stuff and just vibe.
Yeah.
But I can't do that. So, I have a formula, I have a process of doing it my way. And I think I've got to that point. So I'm there now, I think, still working on it.
Yeah, I feel like there's, especially if you have that stage fright, which I also have. Like, I remember the first time I did the NFT NYC stage, and I felt like I was going to throw up just immediately. The only thing I did was I picked out someone in the audience. It was actually Keith Grossman who gave me this advice: was find someone in the audience that like has a good smile, and then just stare at them the entire time and pretend like you're giving your entire speech to them, and that helped immensely.
And imagine them naked.
Yeah, and imagine them completely naked, of course, obviously. It makes it much easier.
Yeah.
Um, you got started so originally in Ladytron. How old were you when you got started with your band?
I was in my 20s. So I
Okay.
just finished my postgraduate degree in Liverpool. And at that point, I was very much into DJing and in the music scene
Hmm.
in the northwest of England. I'd just finished my degree in Sheffield, which was in design. And so once I'd come back to Liverpool, Liverpool's my hometown, I ended up forming a band with some friends. And it was always going to be like a side project thing. You know, I was basically just starting my career in design and just started a new job in that. And so I was taking out holiday time to kind of play shows with the band. And it started out as just, you know, the occasional show in Liverpool or Manchester or London. And then it just got more and more demanding when, you know, we got signed and then America happened and it just became like, you know, it's taking up all of my holiday time from work. And so, yeah, I was in my mid 20s at that point when
What
I
were you what were you doing for work at the time?
in design.
Just
Um,
full-time design?
yeah, industrial design to be specific. So I was designing products, how products are um, organized, how they are styled, how they are kind of made to be used in an easy way. So at the time, like Apple industrial design was like you know, my grail, iMacs, that kind of thing, translucent plastic. Um, and so, yeah, I was working in Liverpool and then I moved down to Cambridge and worked there for a bit. And it was, it was a good career, but there was just something missing for me. You know, my eyes were being opened by traveling with the band. And as I did more and more of that, I realized like, actually, there's still more to doing stuff before I settle down. So I ended up just, you know, quitting the day job and um, joining the band full time.
And when you guys got signed, how was that like a huge event? Was it a big signing? How did that, I mean, you're still working. How did this all, work out for you?
So the label was called Emperor Norton, and they were actually owned by one of the Getty family. And so they had some funds.
Yeah.
Um, and and so the guy who was managing the label, he was traveling in Japan, and he picked up one of our CDs, and he assumed that we were a Japanese band because, like, on the cover of the CD, it was an illustration. It was my illustration actually, and we all look kind of, you know, not really identifiably, you know, in a certain race or whatever. So he thought we were a Japanese band, and then realized um, that we actually weren't from Japan. We were from Liverpool. And so he got really into us, and we ended up getting signed to them. And this was all while I was doing my full-time job. So it was just like, you know, sending us the contract and we would just sign and then we just email it back. And that was that. There was no like great kind of like
Yeah.
the pen signing the dotted line thing.
Still so exciting. And did you know you always wanted to do music, or did that form during college? Because you said you
Um,
DJ'd.
yeah. So I've always been into music. I've always done music all my life. I started out as a kid doing classical music, playing the violin as many Asian kids did. Did that from the age of 5 until 18. When I got to 18, I was like, fuck that. I'm done. with violin. I hate it.
Okay.
I put that away and I got into DJing, and I got into like basically getting into all different types of music that um, I wasn't allowed to get into as a kid, because my dad was, bless him, he was very much into classical music, and he didn't approve of me getting into music other than classical music.
So did you discover electronic music while you were DJing, or had you listened to it prior and then got into DJing because you would listen to it?
Yes, the latter.
Okay.
So it wasn't just electronic music; it was all kinds of just like weird music
Okay.
that wasn't classical. And so in a way, my dad's him telling me that I wasn't able to listen to this music kind of actually had the effect of me exploring that fully.
Yeah, pushed you
Which,
towards it.
yeah, which was great, and that kind of got me into listening to it so much that I just got into DJing and into the whole culture of collecting records and watching bands, and eventually playing keyboards and producing music.
And so you're DJing. What pushed you into forming Ladytron? You're one of the founding members.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? Did you guys just start kind of like vibing together, putting music together, saying, let's do this as a band? Did you did you make a call to a buddy and, hey buddy, let's do this? Like, how did this all, tell me the story of how was Ladytron formed?
Well, my friend Danny, who I was friends with, and we formed the band together originally. He was also a DJ, and so we met that way, and collecting records, that kind of thing.
Right.
And he was also producing music, so he was more of a musician than I was at the time. I wasn't really interested in actually playing music at the time, because I was just really into DJing. And so he already had some stuff, gear to play with. I ended up buying my first synthesizer for like $150 off the equivalent of Craigslist. And now I think it's like $2,000, ridiculous. And just started experimenting with programming stuff in Cubase on my newly bought iMac, and just making really, just the music that we wanted to exist that didn't seem to exist at the time. And I think that was, has always been our motivation in making music. Stuff that wasn't around, that we just wanted to be around. And I think like it's the same with art and photography. It's like I don't think this exists, but I have this idea that I need to make a reality, so I'm going to make it. I don't really know why. I don't really, there's no higher goal or anything. It just needs to be made, and I'm going to be part of that.
Well, and it's wild that you actually found other members of the group who wanted to make the same thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a process. We started out, it was just the two of us. And then we met two of the others a little bit later. And I think with us as a band, I think a lot of bands kind of, some bands kind of get to their final form pretty quickly. For us, it took quite a few years and a few albums to get to that final form, where we suddenly realized what, the identity of who we are, and what the music meant to us. And kind of, I think at first we were like trying to pretend to be a certain idea of something. And it took us a few albums for us to kind of stop pretending and just be that.
Did you go the classic way of just getting in a van and going and playing bars, or did you guys just start laying out albums and trying to get, how did you get your music out there?
We had an album out. I mean, our first single did pretty well, and it got single of the week in the NME quite a few times. And so we had we were riding this wave of really great press. And the album came out at a time where, we were getting requests to play quite a few shows in quite large venues. We would play the occasional local venue in Liverpool, but, it would never be, they would always be like quite large
Okay.
clubs and venues. So I think we had it, we managed to caught that wave, to catch that wave and get to this point, which was, where we were all thinking, I can't believe this is happening, and being surprised that there were so many people who really liked us and liked our music.
Yeah, I bet. How did you share it originally to get it out there? Was it originally the guy who walked into the store and picked up your CD, or was it before that?
We initially released it on our own independent imprint. And so it was kind of, available locally and in the UK. And that's how we got the single of the week in the NME, just by just being independent, just on an indie label.
Wow, that's unheard of.
And so the first album was actually released completely independently. And it was the second album, Light and Magic, which was released on Emperor Norton in the USA. And it was at that point where we started to do all these tours in the US and in Canada and far and wide, because we suddenly had, this this extra channel of being able to play and make our music known in the USA.
What did your dad think?
Well, this is really interesting because he was also a musician.
Really?
Yes, he was a classical musician, and
what did he play?
The piano. And so, really when he was pretty young, he had kind of his main passion was music, and he was a concert pianist, and he was really, really good. But he also wanted to study medicine. And I think he got to the crossroads where he had to choose between going in the full-time music career or going into and pursuing medicine and keeping music as a passion. So he decided to do medicine as a career and keep music as a passion. And so when I talked to him about, hey, Dad, I think I'm going to leave this job in design and then join the band and do this, go on tour and not get paid as much. He was like, well, if you're going to be okay financially, if you can make it work, then do whatever you want, which I thought was amazing.
That's cool.
I felt that he had got, he saw himself in the same crossroads where he was all those years ago. He saw that I was there too. And so I think he knew that he could have gone in the direction of music, but he didn't. So I think he felt that I was able to do that on his behalf.
It's actually really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he fully supported it.
He did. Yeah. And
what does he think?
Which was great.
What do they think now? I mean, after Ladytron, tour, what were their thoughts after? Was he pretty proud?
Yeah. I mean, he saw that the band was doing well. He even came to a few shows.
That's so cool.
I think as he saw my journey unfold, and the indicators of success that parents kind of see, hearing the music on TV, hearing the music on a the soundtrack of a movie, collaborating with Christina Aguilera. Those are the kind of the indicators that parents will be like, oh, okay, I've heard of her. You'd be doing okay.
Yeah, totally.
So it got to the point where he was like, okay, I think he's okay. It took a few years for him to see that.
That's pretty amazing.
But yeah, he believed in me from the very beginning, and he saw that that it worked out. And all this time, my mom, who is an artist, she was always saying like, you got to keep your art alive right through the whole music process, the whole music journey. Because I started out just drawing all the time, and art was my main thing. I was like the kid that won the art prize at school every year.
Yeah.
But you know, I ended up doing design because I didn't think that a career in art was viable, and you know, I think that was a very real thing, and still is, I think.
Yeah.
But she was always, you know, when I was doing music, she was always like, you got to keep the drawing and the art thing going. And because of her, and partly because of like travel with the band, I decided to take up photography. And so photography became my kind of incarnation of art, visual art. And
Did
so
it start with street or landscape?
it started with everything. I
Okay.
was doing all sorts. Because I wanted to try everything. I tried street. I was so bad, unbelievably bad. I just didn't have the kind of, you know, just get in their faces and, you know,
Right.
get the moment. I was just I was too introverted to do that, even though
I
I
get
really
that.
wanted to. And whenever I see great street photography, I'm blown away. And I have so much admiration for street photographers for doing that and
Mhm.
capturing those moments. But I realized pretty early on that that wasn't for me. And landscapes were, you know, the kind of slower subject and the slower um, experience that I gravitated to. And so, yeah, it became a lot more landscape driven and architecturally driven, you know, inanimate subjects rather than people.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot easier, especially when trees don't talk back. They don't tell you, how they want to be modeled. You just take your photos.
Exactly. Yeah.
um,
I don't like directing people.
yeah,
I'd
same.
rather just like watch
Yeah.
things and just in
so you're
control.
so you're traveling, you're touring. Did you just kind of like start wandering off after the concerts? How did that kind of like transition into landscape?
I think by that point, I was pretty much into landscape. And I would, because the schedule of touring is very much, you get to a city, you roll up to the venue, you do the sound check, you have some time off, and then um, you do the show. And then you finish the show, you either get into your bus to go to the next place or you go to the hotel. And then you have a travel day sometimes. So the schedule's pretty nonstop. Um, but each time that I would travel, you know, each destination that I would travel to, I would do some research on the internet and find out what's there. Um, so sometimes that would be like an abandoned amusement park at the top of a mountain, or it would be some kind of weird World War, you know, architecture on the edge of town.
Mhm.
Um, so, for example, I would um, after a sound check, I would just jump into a taxi and then go to one of these places, which would be harder in places where, you know, people don't speak English. You'd have to kind
Yeah.
of like draw things out and there was no Google Translate then.
Did you go alone or with the band? Like after the show?
I'd go alone because I just wanted to be alone, you know.
Yeah.
I was with my band 24/7. So I was like, I just need my own time. And so I'd go by myself. And there was this one time where I took the taxi from our venue in Bilbao, and we just finished. I think we just finished the sound check, and there was this abandoned amusement park at the top of the mountain, and I wanted to go there, so I jumped into a cab, gave him kind of directions to where it was. He drove me up there, and I managed to tell him to come back in an hour, because that's how long I wanted to spend up there. So he drove off, and I kind of walked up to this totally overgrown, derelict, abandoned amusement park. And I was like, wow, this place is really creepy and completely silent. And everything was kind of in fog because that's at the top of this mountain. And so I ended up like jumping this fence and climbing in. And then once I got in, I had my my camera, and I was just walking through, gingerly kind of like walking through this place because it was super, super creepy. It was really scary. Mostly I'm not, I'm not scared of these places, but there was just something just off about this place. And then I noticed, like, in the corner of my eye, movement. I was like, oh shit, someone's
Oh
here.
God.
It's like, oh, it's just someone who's just, a homeless person living there or something like that.
Yeah.
I just kept on, like, walking around. And then I heard a shout, and the movement was basically this guy. He wasn't homeless. He was dressed in like military kind of security type gear. And he was coming my way really quickly and was shouting at me in Spanish. No, yeah, in Spanish. And I was like, okay, this is, I've got now, this is it. And he went up to me, and basically he had a gun, and he had the gun out. I was like, oh shit, this is really bad. And he was just shouting at me, shouting and shouting and shouting. And I was like, I don't know. I'm just tourist, photographer.
Yeah.
So he kind of marched me out to where I kind of climbed into. And then he pointed out, he took my passport. I had my passport on me for some reason. He grabbed that, and he made a phone call to, I don't know, someone. And I was just expecting to be arrested and thrown into prison. And then like, that's the end of my tour. That's the end of the tour.
Yeah, that's the end of Reuben.
It ruined the entire Ladytron tour by being arrested. And so he was on the phone for a long time, and then he came out, and I think basically he was convinced that I wasn't like some kind of Basque separatist, which they have like trouble there from.
Okay.
And he pointed out like two like small houses on either side, miniature houses, which turned out to be like guard dog kennels. I was like, oh, okay. And he was like saying in very kind of stunted English that he was cleaning the dogs, and if the dogs were there, then they would have torn me apart. And eventually he was like, he let me go. And I couldn't wait to get out of there, jump into the cab. The cab showed up, and I was like, take me back.
Fuck.
Got back in time for the show, and I was like, I did not tell anyone for many years. I was so embarrassed. I was like, I'm not going to do that ever again.
That's so scary, man.
Yeah. But you learn from these experiences. You kind of know, you learn what your limits are, and like what you're prepared to do, and what you're not prepared to do, to the point where you kind of find what you really want to do.
How did it transition into drones and what it is today?
Drones didn't come until much later. I'd always dreamed of having a flying camera, since I was a teenager, but I think it was around 2013, 2014, I bought my first drone.
Now, were you already recognized for your work at all, or had you gotten any publication, any recognition yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was kind of like it was at a certain level. I had actually, I didn't go public with my photography until later, around about 2013. Basically, the band took a break, and I decided there was nothing else I wanted to do other than photography. And I had no idea how to do it, who to talk to. I just knew I wanted to do it. And so by this point, I had moved to the US and I was based in Chicago. And so I was doing all of these like road trips and just, just loving every minute of seeing all these places that I had missed when we were touring because there was no time. Um, and so I was spending a lot of time in the desert, um, kind of just exploring with a digital camera, and um, I was experimenting with time lapse at that point, getting more into video. Um, and there was this moment where drones had always been a kind of, I just bought the Phantom drone and it was just like, this is cool. And I was um, shooting all of these videos of, landscapes and everything. And it was, I was crashing it and I was like, oh shit. And it would be really exciting and fun, but they weren't very good at shooting at night. Obviously long exposures, they couldn't stay still. And so I still just really enjoyed just shooting with the normal camera and shooting at night. And so I think it was around 2014, I was out in Trona Pinnacles in California. And I was shooting this landscape. And then this is about 2 a.m. At night. And all of a sudden there was this truck that drove kind of in the distance. And it had its headlights on full beam. And it was so bright that it was lighting up the pinnacles. And it kind of completely transformed the landscape for me. All of a sudden, like this idea of artificial light in a remote environment suddenly changed everything for me about what a photograph could be and what a landscape could be. And so that moment combined with what I was thinking and with, what I was doing with drones, I started to experiment with putting lights on the drones. And so I think it was around 2015 when I had a light on this drone and I was basically testing this technique of lighting above this car. And I was just trying to get into car photography and testing it above the car. And it was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I flew it out above the car on this, at the top of Red Rocks, like the top of the canyon. And it completely changed everything. And I knew that suddenly this approach and this concept was way bigger than just a photograph of a car. And I needed to make a project which was all about this.
That expanded into a complete portfolio. But what was behind the idea of it? Like, I know you saw, a visual, you wanted to create it, but what was, like, where did you want to go with it? Did you just want to create art? Did you want to create a brand campaign? Like, what was kind of like the idea? Just, I want to do this because it doesn't exist?
I needed to make this into existence because it wasn't in existence. And at that point I'd hit a wall creatively, and I was doing all of this landscape photography and trying to be as creative as I possibly could. But I was hitting a wall because I was basically trying to create a world, something that film directors can do and something that painters can do. They can create worlds and they can construct atmosphere by doing certain things that usually landscape photography isn't. And so this idea was like, how do I make images that aren't familiar anymore? Because you go to these places and all you see are these very familiar images and they become predictable. So part of this was like, how do I create a picture that doesn't exist? How do I create a picture that no one's seen before? And that has always been my mantra, really. And being able to use this new technology, but also hacked, basically hacked, modified technology, was a way for me to do really cool and interesting stuff in places where it would normally be super expensive to do. Because normally you'd have like a crane and a light on the crane or a balloon or something. It would be, production wise, it would be really costly and really difficult to get to these remote places that with just a drone and a light and just be by yourself, you can create all of these really interesting portraits of the landscape without all of this expense. And I just knew that, it was something that had to be made, before someone else did it, because it's such a simple idea that I knew someone was just going to do it.
Of course.
And so I thought, okay, this is such a cool and interesting effect that this also has a lot of potential for me getting into, commercial photography, or me making prints, or there are a lot of things that I kind of imagined down the line could be in existence. So I definitely saw the potential in this idea.
Now, had you seen your work in large prints yet, or had you seen any large format stuff before?
Yeah, I
Okay.
had.
So was the idea behind this portfolio is to blow it up eventually into large formats?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in 2013 when I did my first artist residency in like a photography lab, like a digital lab in Chicago. And it was the first time I was able to get my negatives that I'd been shooting over the last decade and scan them properly and think about my work, which was more than just standalone images, and also learn how to print them large. So I was definitely framing this project in that kind of approach, thinking that this could be a body of work which is published. It could be framed and exhibited. I want to learn how to print these very well. Yeah, I definitely saw this as a moment where that my work could get to another level.
And is that when you decided to pick up a high resolution camera and go with a phase? Like where did that start to come into play, where I need to get, because most photographers, they've never even heard of the phase one. So where did, this all come into play? I need big prints, or yeah.
So the phase one camera wasn't my first medium format camera. My first one was actually the Mamiya RZ67, which I picked up in like 2010.
Okay.
And so the negatives from that were like, basically phase one quality, really amazing. And so I knew that printing at medium format was going to be my goal. And when I was testing this project and kind of strategizing this concept, the project, I was always thinking, I need to shoot this on medium format. My Canon 5D Mark II was full frame, but it was also, 24 megapixel. I wanted to shoot on 100 megapixel. And so, while I was prepping for this project, I was kind of reaching out to people who can help, fund the project and sponsor me and things like that. I managed to get in touch with phase one, and I sent them my proposal. I was like, this is what I want to do. Can you help me? Can I shoot this on your camera? And then you can use it for whatever you want. And so they sent me the kit. And I did the first, I guess the first section of the project on the phase one, which was, pretty amazing to be able to have these images, my very, early images at 100 megapixel quality.
Right.
Was amazing. And so I was able to, think about the project in ways where brands can get involved. And, things like the lights on the drone. The drone itself was a brand helping me out. It was a brand called 3D Robotics, who were a competitor to DJI at the time. they never made it, but they were really cool, and they did like stuff with their drone that DJI couldn't do at the time. There was a light um, that was designed to be attached to it, and so I don't think people had come up with the idea of putting the light on the drone, but I don't think anyone had thought of taking that approach and doing it in the remote desert. So I think the product existed, but I think my approach and my concept wasn't in existence. So yeah, it was pretty interesting how I was able to leverage these relationships and get my project to a certain level pretty early on using really good gear. And then that was my first interaction with Phase One as a company. And then later on, I think it was around 2018, they were already aware of me, and then they got in contact with me about the XT camera, about this new camera that they were developing. And by that point, they had a 150 megapixel digital back, which was even more amazing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it was in 2019 when I actually did a proper project with Phase One. And that's how I became an ambassador and that kind of thing.
So I know how heavy those things are, especially with lenses and just, tripods. And I know how much equipment you have to get out to your locations. Do you have a team that comes out with you? How do you lug all that stuff out there? Because I know for me, it is nearly impossible to carry the Phase One and all of my stuff anytime I go out.
I definitely take out a shit ton of gear.
Yeah, dude, you take out the kitchen sink.
Yeah, but I don't take it all out with me when I'm out shooting. So I basically have all this stuff basically in the back of my car or in a hotel or some kind of base camp. And then you
leave it all in your car?
No.
I was like, dude, that's so crazy. I get so paranoid.
I was thinking to myself, did I say that?
I'm like, everyone, what model does Reuben drive? What's the license plate?
Sometimes it's in the back of the truck, but it's in a remote place where no one else is. Never in a city, never anywhere where there's people.
Yeah.
But usually it's like, in the hotel room, then everything is there. It's basically my base camp. I take the things that I need for what I need that night or the next day.
And do you go out there with like the full Pelican case, or do you go out there with a backpack? Like, how do you get all this gear out there?
The backpack.
Okay.
So my backpack will take the ICU of the Pelican case. So Phase One and all the camera stuff is in this padded case, which fits perfectly inside the Pelican, and it also fits perfectly inside my backpack. So I basically pull it out of the Pelican, put it in my backpack, and that's how I can hike with that stuff. Then I strap the tripods and drone and put that in there too.
Do you go out there with heavy tripods or carbon fiber?
Heavy carbon fiber tripods.
God, that's rough, bro.
They are extremely light for their size. I mean, it's like, what this is the Gitzo.
Yep, I got that one. Yeah.
It's so good, but and it is carbon fiber, but it is heavy. It is really heavy, but it's the strongest tripod on the market. It's really good.
It's a beast.
Yeah. But I don't always take this out with me.
Do you carry multiple tripods when you go out there?
I take 2.
Okay.
Sometimes 3. And I'm usually by myself. Sometimes I take my assistant. These days I would have my assistant and he'd come out. So it would be 2 of us. But these days I'm more kind of, not only do I want to get the image, I want to record the behind the scenes too.
So much more to it, right?
Yeah, it's a whole other workflow. So I would need an extra tripod, an extra camera. So I'm usually out with the Hero camera, and then I have the BTS camera, And then I would have like 2 tripods, a big one and a small one. Then I'd have my assistant bring out an extra tripod and maybe his camera. So we'd have like 3 cameras and a few tripods. And sometimes he would have he'd bring his drone as well, just in case.
Yeah,
Because
it's funny. People will be like, why do you go to the gym every day like you're a photographer? And it's like, dude, because I have a phase 1.
it's very true. And
They're so heavy.
yeah. And the past 2 years I've been like, well, 2 years ago, like in the past, I was like, I'm pretty fit. I can hike to these places. I can carry all of this stuff. Up to the point where I was like, actually, I can't do this. I can't just do my working out when I'm hiking.
Yeah.
Not sustainable.
No, it's not. I'll be like a mile and a half in with that rig on my back, and I'm like, all right, well, it's time to take a 20-minute break because my back is destroyed.
Yeah. And kind of going down hills where like, the legs and your muscles, like, I can't do this. And I wasn't doing any exercise at all. And it's only really been the past 2 years where I've decided, okay, I'm going to do squats now. I'm going to do squats. I'm going to lift and I'm going to run. And man, that has made such a huge difference.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's like, oh, I can walk down hills now without my legs giving away. And it's definitely transformed my life.
Yeah, I remember not doing a hike because I was so out of shape in the sense that I just wasn't working out. And I had the phase, and it was in San Francisco, those stairs all the way down to the beach to get that shot underneath the bridge. And I just couldn't do it, man. I'm just like, I can't do this with the phase and all this stuff. And on top of that, I have, 50, 60 leaf filters. I've got packs of filters. I've got, polarizers. So it's like just too much weight.
Yeah. Yeah, it is ridiculous after
It
a
really
while.
is.
And the phase is not designed for it's not a location camera. It's a studio camera.
It's not a landscape camera. And how did you eventually transition into National Geographic? Like, did this just come about? Did they approach you? Did you approach them?
I did not approach them because I felt that my stuff was too weird and too artistic is not the right word, but too kind of left field, I guess, too non-photojournalistic.
I think artistic is the perfect word because they're not really as focused on the art part as they're focused on telling the story part.
But I think that I think that photojournalism can be art as well, can be very
Totally.
artistic.
Absolutely.
So I felt like it was, because I create these with kind of an intervention rather than documenting, and because sometimes I shoot in multiple exposures and stack them, I felt that wasn't something that Nat Geo would ever be into.
Right.
And so I kind of just did my own thing. And obviously, like so many of us, we were brought up on National Geographic, and that was kind of our dreams to work with them. But, I put that aside. And it was around 2017, I did this thing called a portfolio review where you bring your work to an event and you have like 20 minutes with photo editors, curators, gallery managers, book publishers. You're basically photo industry people, and they look at your work and they give you all of this critique. You tell them what you want out of the meeting, like, I want to publish a book, or I want to get this published in a magazine, or, and they kind of critique that and they give you that feedback. So I went to my first one, and National Geographic was there, but I did not select them to talk to because I knew that they wouldn't be interested. Turns out that, like during one of the socials, I bumped into the National Geographic person who happened to be the director of photography at the time, Sarah Lean. And I was like, yeah, I'm here to kind of show my work as kind of landscape based. And she was like, oh, I'd love to see it. And so I showed it to her. And she was like, wow, this is unbelievable. Can we sit down and kind of have a proper talk about this?
Wow.
And
Just chills, I bet.
completely by surprise, we sat down, I took her through it. And by that point, the work had kind of become, I was able to talk about the work a little bit more. I was able to articulate the ideas behind the work a bit more. And so she was super into it. And we ended up staying in touch over a few years. And she got in touch and asked me if I would talk about the work at the National Geographic Storytellers Summit, which happens in Washington, D.C. every year.
Yeah.
And I obviously said, wow, okay, yes.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. And that was definitely a moment. And I spoke for 10 minutes and it was unbelievable. And I was so fucking nervous that I fluffed my first line. I think I was about to say hello or something. I couldn't even say hello properly.
I get it.
Uh, and so, yeah. And so maybe 2 years after that, I got contacted by an editor at Nat Geo asking if I would like to work on a project. And that turned out to be the Stonehenge project. And that took like a whole year to organize and to figure out. But eventually it was in 2021 in the middle of the pandemic where I came over and I spent maybe 2 or 3 weeks in the south of England visiting all of these spots and taking pictures. And then it was another year before it was published. So an amazing experience.
Yeah. I mean, to get permission to even do that.
Yeah, permission was definitely a thing.
Yeah.
The English heritage, they don't allow drones there. So we had to send like the flight path. I think they were expecting a big, massive drone or something, like a huge thing.
Yeah.
So we had to send like the areas where we were going to be kind of flying around the monument, and we weren't allowed inside the inner circle of the monument in case the drone would fall and damage the stones. And this is like millions of years old stone
Right.
that stood the test of time. Little plastic drone.
Yeah. Imagine.
Yeah. And it was also in military airspace. So the Royal Air Force had to kind of be brought in, and we had to send them a submission for permission as well.
Wow.
Because airspace, we had to call the Royal Air Force each time we flew the drone. Yeah, it was fun.
Dude, but what an experience to be there at night, to be able to capture that. I mean, you must have spent hours just staring at these.
Yeah. And many moments where I was like, pinch me. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't believe I am doing this. This is just insane.
So what did we learn about Stonehenge? I mean, there's so many theories behind it. There's so much. What did you experience?
So the story
Yeah.
was about, it was quite a general story about Stonehenge, but I think, there was the one part of it was the cultural aspect where they were planning to build like an underpass near Stonehenge. And there was a lot of controversy about the underpass kind of built like tunneling through potentially stuff that is buried, artifacts which are buried underground. So there were things that, there was that side of the story. And then there was this discovery that the rocks had actually come from very, very, very far away, kind of south of Wales, in Pembrokeshire, where to transport these rocks would have been like extremely, extremely difficult over hundreds and hundreds of miles. But it turns out that these rocks actually came from this very, very distant quarry. And so people still don't know exactly how they got to Stonehenge, but they did.
So crazy.
Yeah, it was just so epic beyond my imagination. You know,
Yeah. It's just like one of the mysteries of the world that just, I mean, to just be there must be so mind blowing and just to spend hours there at night. It's just, it's like spiritual almost.
yeah, it definitely was, and for me, it was spiritual in a way. I felt connected to my um, younger self because as a kid growing up in England, everyone would always go to Stonehenge on a school trip.
Really?
Yeah, you
Okay.
always, you get onto a bus and you drive like 6 hours to get to a pile of rocks, and it would be raining and cold, and you couldn't even get up to the stones. You'd just see them from afar, and like, yeah, that's Stonehenge. And for me, that was like so dull and miserable
It
that
seems so cool.
I knew that I had to do something um, to kind of blow that vision out of my head
Yeah.
because it become I felt that with it being one of the most photographed landmarks in the world, it I think it started to become to look ordinary to people, too familiar, too predictable. Um, it had lost its magic, and so I think that's why I got involved and why I was brought in was to be able to show this very familiar place in a completely unfamiliar light.
Yeah, I feel like you not only put the magic back in, but you put the wonder, I think, in so many kids because I mean, we grew up with National Geographic. It was the pinnacle of photography. Any photographer wants to be able to say, I shot for National Geographic. And so I think like you kind of did what you did for yourself as a kid in the sense that you put the wonder back in these kids' eyes when they see that cover and they say, well, maybe I could do that one day. Because even you thought, there's just no way Nat Geo is going to accept me for this type of photography, but here it is. And I believe it won. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think like number one is the top photograph in the world for National Geographic. Like it won a contest for that.
What, the Stonehenge one?
Yeah.
Um, it I think the story won an award. Um, Ironically, a photojournalism story.
Of course.
Uh, yeah, and I think it was one of the rare moments, the rare issue where the, because it's the editions are like there are multiple editions for multiple countries all over the world, and very rarely do they have a single image for all of them. But for this particular issue, it actually had this same image for all of them, which was pretty amazing.
It's so cool, man. And going back, what did your dad think?
Well, this is a little sad. He passed away just before I was asked to do the Storyteller Summit presentation.
Dude, I'm so sorry. Did he know that you were getting into photography?
Yes,
Okay.
but he didn't know about the National Geographic thing. It was like
Man.
it was really sad because he died just after my birthday, and I was just about to speak at phase one, and so um I was gonna drop over to the UK to see him, but then he passed away. I was like, oh my god. I ended up not doing the phase one thing, um, and then like while I was in England, dealing with the stuff, uh, I got the email from Sarah Lean from National Geographic. So it was like, oh my god, if he had seen
Wow.
this.
What about your mom? What was her thoughts?
Oh, she loved. Yeah, she was living in Hong Kong at the time, but she was over the moon.
I bet she's just so proud
Yeah, yeah,
because art was her thing. You know, she wanted you to get back into art.
absolutely. And I think for a while she was like, she wasn't sure about the photography thing, but I think she sees it now. She sees that you can do art in photography.
That's so cool. What a cool story. And then in 2020, I think is when I met you. How did you get into NFTs and Web3 and all that? Where did you find that?
Um, Obviously, pandemic times.
Yeah.
Um, I was I was definitely out shooting a lot, even though the pandemic was happening. It was a way of me to get to spend just alone time in these places. So I remember like
Were you
being
traveling like international or just
no,
local?
no, in like Utah and stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I'd be like, reading about all of this shit happening, and I'd be in the middle of nowhere doing all of this stuff, and you know, it it just seemed kind of, I seemed it seemed very disconnected from the real world.
Mhm.
Um, but at the time, I was um, not only excited by photography, I was really inspired by digital art and illustrations and CGI stuff, and that was kind of because I know so many photographers at the time were just into photography, and for me, coming from different disciplines, um, I really loved seeing art in different mediums, and so I think it was people like G Monk, um, Victor Mosquera, Thank You X, JN Silva, um, who were all like experimenting and doing all of these different mediums. And I was following them, and they were doing these auctions and posting the work and showing posting about these auctions that were happening. And I had no idea what this was. What is this E symbol? What the fuck is that?
That's funny.
Um, and I had no experience in crypto at all.
Okay.
It was just a really distant thing that I knew that other people were doing and some friends were doing it. And,
Yeah.
I was just like photography,
Yep.
doing the thing, appreciation of art. And yeah, I think, and they were like, yeah, there's this, it's on Ethereum. It's crypto art. And, we're doing these auctions on Nifty Gateway. And you should get into it because your work would go down really well. And this was in like November, December 2020. And so I started following all of that and got really into it. As I was traveling, I was always just in the clubhouse rooms and just listening in and learning. It, I was in it for a while before I actually minted my first thing
I remember.
because, um, because of the energy consumption thing. And it felt like me being a landscape photographer, it didn't sit well.
Right.
Um, and I was like thinking, overthinking, and like, what is this? And um, in the end, I was like, this is like a new world that we need to explore, that I need to explore, and I need to check it out, and I need to share my work there. I need to be part of this community. I want to be part of this community. That's not gonna happen if I don't share my work and post my work there and release my work there. So I thought, fuck it, and I was able to um, mint my first piece on Foundation, and I'd already had a drop organized on Nifty Gateway, but that was going to be in April, and so it was around about February or something, or March, where I released my first one of one on Foundation. And that went really well. I think I started at like half an ETH or something, and it got to 30, and it was it was like tumbleweeds until like the last 2 hours or the last hour. It was just insane. It was insane because I was in LA at the time. I was doing a shoot, and I'd finished the shoot, and the auction had been live for like 20 hours or so. So I got to the hotel and I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh well. Yeah. Oh well.
And then like bids started happening. And basically the last hour or something was just completely bonkers. Where two people were bidding on the work, and it was a bid war that went from like five ETH to 30.
So crazy, man.
Yeah, I still can't believe it. Still can't.
Had you ever sold your work for that kind of price?
Before then, no. Oh
Yeah.
my God,
That
no.
was life changing.
It was. What's really interesting is that these pieces were they were already in existence, and I'd created them as experiments. And I was posting them on Instagram. And you remember when Instagram first enabled like video, and it was like 15 seconds of video. I decided I was going to like play with this and mess around with these images that I'd shot, using drone lighting, and then create motion pieces out of them that would last for 15 seconds, and they would like loop. And then I'd put my own like music and sound in there. And they were just done just because I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
I love doing them because they kind of bridged my music discipline with my visuals discipline. And so they were obviously going to be the thing that I was going to mint. But yeah, they turned out to be a perfect thing.
Perfect fit for the blockchain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So cool. And I've seen a lot of your prints, how they have like the AR integration where they're, like the light in the bolt and or the lighting comes, alive. How do you do that?
The AR ones, they use like a filter that is on the phone. It's an app called Artivive, and it uses the camera. You basically open the app, use the camera to lock onto the image, and basically Artivive, you tell it to lock onto an image. You give it an image, and when it sees that image, it plays the video piece.
So cool, man.
And so basically you point the phone at the framed piece and it comes alive, which I think is, it's pretty cool. But what I think is cooler is it's almost like the actual prints that come alive. And I was able to, like, before all of the AR stuff, I was able to experiment with light projection mapping, where I projection map an animation onto an actual fine art print. So the fine art print would be like a matte finish, and that would be taped to the wall. And then I would use this projector to actually project the animated part onto the print. So it would be registered exactly by the pixel. So that when it projected, it's basically like looking at a print that is moving, not like a screen.
It's so cool, man. I love how you do it.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's super unique. And it is perfect for, like this digital art renaissance that we're doing right now. It fits in perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
makes
kind of,
sense.
it kind of gave me life. It revitalized my my practice, where these little animations that were looping on my Instagram doing nothing, suddenly it was a new lease of life for my practice. I was, I knew that, I was able to really get into that and just and make longer ones and better ones, and something that I didn't think would ever have a home had a home, which I think is very, a story which a lot of artists in Web3 share.
Yeah, I think it's a common thing where it's not only hard to curate your own collection, but we create because we have a passion for it. We create because we love it. But do we really have a place for it? I think is the hardest, how do I find where I fit in? I mean, you never thought you'd be in National Geographic, but as soon as they saw the work, they said, this is super unique. Let's get them in here. So it's a matter of finding, the right market, the right place, but also putting it out there, it's to sharing it. And I think that's a conference for artists to share their art. But I think your story is a great example, and I think it should be motivation for any artist to share their work, because you never know where it's going to fit in. You never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah. And I think the whole community has just been, for an artist, for a person who has never felt that they've fitted in, the NFT space has just been the most amazing community, where I'm friends with not just photographers. I'm friends with people from so many different mediums. And it's just given me such an expanded view on art and just feeling that I have this kind of interdisciplinary background enables me to think about my own art in ways that I couldn't if I were just into photography. And I think that's where a lot of people who are just into photography lack is perspective from other mediums, seeing what is happening in other mediums, and kind of all of this hate with AI is just like, come on, just learn about it, understand it a little bit more. And it's so driven with fear, and people don't see it that it's a tool to be used, to be wielded, rather than a kind of machine that is consuming everything and then regurgitating things.
Well, I mean, I kind of witnessed the same thing in 2008 when I was into film, and everyone was switching over to digital. And I remember speaking to a couple of my mentors and saying, I want to switch over to digital. It's cheaper, it's easier, it's going to make my workflow better. And everyone, don't switch to the dark side. I remember that's what they called digital, was the dark side. All the old pros, just don't go to digital, man. That the pink Cadillac is in film and in dark rooms, and here we are today. And there's not very many film photographers left. And I look at AI in a very similar way, where it's very similar to Photoshop, where everyone looked at Photoshop as a cheat code, and it's a tool to be used.
Yeah. And
I think
who is wielding that tool? It's a human.
Yep.
And it's all about how you use it. If you let it do everything, then of course you're going to get shit.
Yep.
If you let the tool become the dominant creative thing in any process, you're going to get shit.
It's going to be slop.
It's all about nuance, and it's all about intention and controlling it in a way that is, where the goal is creating something that only you can create. And whether you use photography or AI, do it. Yeah.
Art is a manifestation of your intention. And I think AI is a very great example of that. I have one more question for you, Reuben. You recently had a daughter, I believe, son? Recently had a son. I remember when I adopted my daughter, when I first started dating my girlfriend at the time, she had a 1-year-old daughter. And I remember thinking to myself, and this was 12 years ago, and I remember thinking to myself, if something happens and, my daughter gets sick or anything, I'm not going to stop shooting. I'm not going to stop traveling. And I know this sounds so crass and just like so terrible, but I was just, at the time trying to understand like that there's just no way I'm going to give up my passion. I don't care if, my daughter gets cancer, I'm going to continue to travel and keep shooting. And now 12 years later, I would throw away everything, my camera, all my money, everything to save my daughter, to be there. I want to know how having a child has affected you in the sense of artist legacy, how you see things. Does it maybe, do you feel as it holds you back? Does it feel like it debilitates you? Does it feel like it's a partnership and if anything, it helps you? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but I want to know, how has it affected you as an artist?
So I actually have 3 kids.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. I thought that was the first. I remember you posting about it, and I thought that was the first.
No, I have 3.
How old?
The oldest is 7.
Okay.
The youngest is 1, and the middle one is 6. My daughter's the middle one. And they are my life.
Right.
And I am still a photographer, and I still travel. But luckily I have a wife who is really, really supportive, and she's able to be a much better parent than I am.
I get that.
So I basically suck as a parent. But when I'm not traveling, I'm at home, and I can be at home for weeks or months at a time. Occasionally I go away for a week or so, but when I'm home, it's like I'm just a part of the furniture. So I'm very, so when I'm home, I'm very, very present. And I feel that there are aspects where, people who have a 9 to 5 and they commute to work, and they come home every night, but that's still a kind of daily absence. Whereas
Hmm.
for me, um, I'm home all the time. I'm home a lot, and I'm not
Yeah,
always traveling. I try to limit my shoots to maybe 2 weeks, and if they are over 2 weeks, then I bring the family along, and then we all
that's
have a good
cool.
time, and
That's
that's great.
amazing.
And then
Yeah,
I'm really blessed to have a family who loves traveling as well. Um, so it's amazing when they come out and they can explore spots with me, and you know, I think we have a system in place, me and my wife, where you know I'm able to do what I need to build my career, and um, but at the same time spend as much time as I can with the kids. I feel that the more I do with my career, I can support them better, and they can you know I think it's good for kids to see that you can succeed in the creative industries. And um, I think in the past, being an artist has just been like, art just has a bad reputation, and this idea of the starving artist. And I don't want that. I don't want to be that. I never wanted to be that. I want to show that you can succeed doing photography and doing art, and, you know, be an inspiration for others who are young, and show them that you can do this.
I think that's so important. I know it's been hard for me to find that balance of being home with my daughter and, traveling, to take photos. I remember for the first, couple years of her life, I wasn't there. I was running a gallery in Minnesota, traveling all over, trying to increase my portfolio. And lately, I've just noticed that all I want to do is be home and spend time with her because it's so limited, man. It's like at some point she's going to be 18 and they're just, and it'll be over. I think I love what you said because I feel like with your family, it's a partnership. You bring them with you. If anything, they're not holding you back; they're pushing you forward, and I think that's important. Especially, I think a lot of artists, at least that I talk to, are so afraid of having a family because they feel that it will destroy their legacy. That they're put on this planet to create art, to do their job, and a family would literally completely just deviate from that whole goal. And I think that there's definitely something to be learned. So I appreciate you sharing it, man. It's important.
Yeah, I felt that way too. I felt like,
Same.
this is kind of why I held off settling down for so long.
Yeah.
Um, was that, you know, I just want to start on this photography thing, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for kids, but when they happen, they just happen,
Exactly.
and you just make it work.
And it works out great. I feel like as much as I don't have the money, it's going to hold me back. If something happens, I'm going to quit photography and get a job at Starbucks just to make sure my family's okay. But then you realize that these are all just worries. These are just stresses. Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So you just have to you gotta have to go for it.
Yeah, they're all projections, they're all expectations
Yep.
and fears. Nothing prepares you for having a kid. Um, I mean,
No.
does your daughter come out with you at all?
Yeah, I've taken her on a few shoots. The biggest issue that we have is we have 4 dogs, so it's hard to take like the whole family. It's like load them up in an RV kind of thing, but international. But she's gone on a few shoots, and I think like for me, it's helped me push me because I will go to locations that I would have never gone to. But
Mm,
with her, I want to take her, and then I end up actually getting a shot out of it, and it's more magical because we were both there and we get to hang it on the wall.
yeah, and it's a
There's something to that.
great place to have people in the images too. One thing that as a very much a solitary photographer, I'm like, I wish I'd someone there just to stand there.
I get
So
that.
yeah, it is nice to have someone there, especially a loved one.
Yeah, it's important, man. Well, Ruben, dude, thank you so much. I've always wanted to hear your story. It's a wild ride following your journey, and it is uh It's highly impressive, man. You've done a lot in honestly a very short amount of time, in my opinion. There's a lot of photographers that I think look at your journey and they're very motivated by it. Like young 15-year-old Richard, just always says, I want to be Reuben Wu. So, man, if you inspire, I think even one kid, it's game changing. So, dude, thank you for doing this. Thank you for your time, and just thanks for making just incredible art, man.
Thanks. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this was fun, man. Glad to learn your journey, and let's do this again soon.
Yeah, definitely.